Are you ready to get your button pushed? You're tuned in to What's the Reason for This, the podcast where music meets madness, friends become family, and every conversation finds its own groove. Kick back, laugh loud, and let's find the reason together. The button has been pushed. Hello and welcome. What's up, guys? Back for another episode of What's the Reason for This podcast. As you can see, we just keep pushing Shay out. I don't know what's going on, but sometimes our guests have a time frame and Shay just can't meet those criteria, and he's off doing something much more important. But I could not be happier to let you guys know that I have the one and only Matt Mundy with us this week. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, Mr. Kodi, doing good and yourself?
Oh man, I am super stoked to have this. As you can, I don't know if you can see the full thing. I got a Waymanda Circle street sign from the original Widespread Panic House in Athens,
Awesome.
and yeah, and so we actually, a buddy of mine, Aaron Cook, Swolebro Baggins, we posted a video earlier this past week of the Aquatic Rescue Unit, and it got an amazing response. And for me, what I have always loved about the podcast and whatever platform we've been gifted with is sharing music with people. And a lot of the times it's some of these up and coming bands. But then there's stuff like you, Matt, where some of these young bucks have no clue who Matt Mundy is or who ARU is. When that video started blowing up, and I saw you had an Instagram, I was like, oh my God, I have to at least try to get you on the show. And you answered, and you're here.
I had nothing else to do, man. Come on, give me a break.
Listen, I know you've been keeping busy. I know that for a fact.
Thank you.
But for those of our listeners that don't know who you are, obviously for me, I'm a huge fan, and I always do our research to make sure we're not asking the same monotonous questions over and over again. But luckily for us, there also isn't a lot of interviews with you lately, right? And Matt, I know that you come from a long line of musicians yourself.
I do, yeah. Family, at least back probably to the 1800s, turning over to the 1900s. I know of a great grandfather who was a fiddle player.
That is absolutely insane to me. And I've read in other interviews that you said at the age of 11 you were bit by bluegrass, right? So what does that mean? Like, what happened? Was there a moment? Did you hear a song? Were you at one of these picks?
Right.
Obviously, with musicians in your family, you grew up with it.
Yeah. Well, my mom's a stand-up bass player and has been all my life. So I've heard bluegrass music, and she's been in bands all my life. So that's that. And quality bands. All the bands were always good. What I right now would consider, good bands. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say bit by the bug unless you are just born into it more than anything. Yeah. Bluegrass.
So what happened at 11 that made you start picking it up then, right? Because is that about the
I
time when
think
you got into it?
Well, my uncle was a fiddle mandolin player. He played both instruments. Mom went through a divorce about that time, and we moved right across the road from my uncle. So I don't know, just wanted to play fiddle. I'd played sports a lot at that time, as all kids do around that age. And it was just he was an awful funny fellow. He just wanted to be around him all the time. So I don't know, I guess he kind of made me want to play. I guess Gary Looper was his name. Yeah, and here again, I did not lack any, stimulation of wanting to play. There was music around bluegrass all the time. My grandfather, Roy Westray, was a dobro player and played just note for note Josh Graves, who was the dobro player with Flatt and Scruggs. So if your great uncle, your mom, and your grandfather are prolific players, it looks like the thing to do. So I just kind of picked it up, as my brother did. My brother, 2 years younger, he started playing guitar about the same time, which puts him, timeline starting a couple years in life earlier than I did. So he probably started 8 or 9 years old playing guitar. So it was a slow start. I started on fiddle to some degree of success. Stuart Duncan didn't have any competition, if that makes any sense to you.
Of course it does. That's amazing.
But I got to where I could saw pretty good with the right arm. I think I had a good bow arm, but my left hand probably didn't intonate probably as good as I like. So I always tell the funny story. My Uncle Gary, he had a double case. It had his mandolin and fiddle. He was showing me fiddle. And so I picked up his mandolin one day, and it just felt more natural because mandolin and fiddle are brother and sister. They're tuned the same. And so therefore your left hand it's the same thing as a mandolin and fiddle are the same. So when I picked his mandolin up, it just felt more natural.
Was it just the holding of the bridge, or?
I think so, and I attribute it to, it's silly, but I attribute it to the dang fiddle was really close to my ears, and having the foot difference of where your mandolin is to your ears made it seem like it may have mellowed it just a little bit and seemed like it was a little sweeter tone. Therefore, it didn't.
So it was more of a tone thing, because we've had fiddlers on that are like, hey, do not pick up the fiddle. It is the most uncomfortable movement and notion to like get through playing, right?
I think also it's like it's a voice. There's no frets. There's no cage saying, here's your A note, here's your B note. You've got to sweeten that sucker up.
You got to find the sweet spot. Yeah.
Or just hack it out, or bow it out, scratch it out, I guess would be the term.
Well, I mean, when we teach people how to drive stick shift, with I don't know is a thing anymore, but if you can't find it, grind it, right? And it's kind of the same thing on a fiddle. You just got to work through some of those high pitched screech to find what you need.
It wasn't long before I'd gotten a little better mandolin. Mom, of course, helped us anything we wanted. She did her best to get us what we wanted, So my Mom played in a bluegrass band in the 70s called the Bluegrass Generation. And in that band was a gentleman named Danny Jones, who's a very well known in certain circles bluegrass musician around the Louisville, Kentucky area. So he came to visit shortly after I'd started playing, and he told Mom if he's serious about it, we'll get it. He got me a Alvarez F model mandolin, which there's a difference in the A model and F model. F model just looks cooler. I hope Tim O'Brien isn't listening. I really hope that.
I think that we should send the clip to him just to make sure that he knows the difference. So you got the one with all the bells and whistles.
And when I got that instrument, the hands seemed to start circulating a little better and understanding tunes all the way through from point A to point B. It wasn't long before I was in a band.
Did you start in a family band, or how did you make it?
Yeah, I played in my mom's band. The band at the time was called Indian Summer. It had been about 1981, I guess it was, 81 or so. And my first gig ever was at Kiwi Island, South Carolina, and I just named a tune after that gig called Breaks at Kiwi, because I only knew two breaks, or solos, if you will, two breaks on the mandolin at all on my first gig. It was a 2-hour set, and I knew two breaks, and so I always kept that in, thought it was kind of funny, so I got Breaks at Kiwi. That was my first gig. That would have been probably 81 or so.
That's so amazing, like, right? Because there's so many young musicians or people that are coming up that, okay, well, I just need to play this the same exact way that this person played it, right? And those breaks is where you really start to find your own voice.
Yeah, and of course I tried to work them out. Then of course you get on stage and you forget everything you've got worked out. So then you got to have a plan B there, I guess is what it amounts to.
Well, I mean, every musician has to have that adaptation or that audible for something. I call it the oh shit moment, right? It's like,
yes, that's a good way to look.
Well, because it happens, right? And it happens to all of us. And sometimes you can see, like, it just eats people alive. I remember we were watching a young up-and-coming band, Shadowgrass. And their guitar player, who actually won IBMA Guitar Player of the Flat Picker of the Year, Kaiser George, that boy popped 3 strings in the same song. And you could see it on his face,
so
and
changed the string, broke it again,
changed the string, popped it, changed it, and I don't know if it was the same one or if he just kept popping. And the way that boy plays, it does not surprise me at all. But like that could have killed most musicians, right? Where they're just, I'm gonna put my hands up and just be like, hey, this is just not meant to be.
Yeah, and usually when that happens is when Sam Bush is on the first row or something, that's usually when that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about sports. It's like the scout is there to watch you finally play, right? And you're like, oh my God, one of my idols is out there watching me, and
Twist
it's
your
like
ankle.
boing, yeah, and like,
Yeah.
oh no. But it builds character, right? And you know this, that the music industry is full of character building, and it's a lot of chopping you down, right? And so starting in 81 with the family band and like evolving and challenging yourself as a musician, did you know that it was something that you wanted to do? Were you focusing more on work or school? I know that off air we had talked about you gave up playing basketball, right? Because your coach is like, "Hey, are you going to do this?" And you're like, "No, I'm going to play music."
Another funny story that I had been nominated for not King Homecoming Court,
Yep.
where a few guys and a few girls in your ninth grade are nominated for this, and so I go to the practice, which is like Wednesday or something like that in school. You know, it's ninth grade, and of course you're girl crazy at that time. You know, so anyway, in the meantime, Thursday, a friend Connie Morris calls, and Jimmy Ross call me and say, "We've got a gig. Would like you to come and sit in with us on Friday at Jemison, Alabama." And this would have been 1983 or something like that. So I say, let's see, go with this girl to the homecoming. I go to play the gig,
You
and
left the girl on the
she had
Matt,
her. Hey,
Matt.
this is hush hush, but now hopefully nobody will tell on me. But Amy Carnes was her name, and she never spoke to me all the way through high school again.
You
She
left her
was,
at the altar of the high school prom court. That's
but
hilarious. Homecoming court.
here's the homecoming. It was November. It was like November or October, something like that, of 80. I want to say 83. But on my picture on my wall, I've got a picture right now, me holding Jimmy Goodroe's mandolin on stage, who was
At that show.
at that show. So it all panned out just
It
like
was
that.
meant to be, Matt. You made the right decision.
He Jimmy Goodrow, of course, was legendary bluegrass mandolin player. Played with everyone down through the years, 70s, 80s, and so forth. Yeah. So it all panned out, but Amy sure was a pretty girl. I'll say. Oops.
Well, yeah,
Sorry, Amy.
hey, it's okay, Amy. It worked out for the best, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure, right? But so then coming from like influences, and I've read in the past of you talking about some of like the Mount Rushmores of like the Grismans and Sam Bush, right? What were some of these other names that were influential or people? Because a lot of the times when I talk to musicians, it's regional players that actually absolutely blew the top off of local venues, but nobody outside of that area knew who they were. Was there some, and obviously with all the connections that your mom had, were there some influential mandolin players that really helped you start to find your groove?
There was, yeah, and you're exactly right. A lot of mandolin players, bluegrass musicians in large, a lot of them, you go to Walmart and ask, do you know this guy? No, they don't know these. So yes, in short, there was a band called the Bluegrass Cardinals who recently went into the Hall of Fame of bluegrass, which is pretty good. And they always kept a great mandolin player, from Bobby Clark, Randy Graham, and one in particular, Larry Stevenson, who also, I mentioned earlier, Danny Jones helped me get a good mandolin. Larry Stevenson helped me get a good mandolin too when I was 15. Davis mandolin that I played all the way through the Aquarium Rescue Unit days, recorded with Béla Fleck using this mandolin. So the Bluegrass Cardinals in particular always had a great mandolin player. Whomever it was would have a good chop, the rhythm part of the
Of
instrument.
course.
Yeah,
And so for you to find your voice, right? Like, or your chop, what was it that you went out, what was, whether it was like the mannerisms or like you said, transitioning from the fiddle to the mandolin, it just felt more comfortable. Then did you find your rhythm and you found your chop kind of right away, or was there an evolution of that as you started to play?
well, yeah, as mentioned before, my mom was a bass player, so the mandolin works off the bass. You can leave that there. And I've had no shortness of great bass players playing with in my life, from mom to Oteil Burbridge to Edgar Meyer. Got to play a few times with Edgar Meyer. So I've never had a problem finding a bass player.
No, we literally need to have a bell to ding for all these
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
musicians that you have been
True.
connected to or
Well,
talked
thank
to,
you
Matt,
very
because
much.
it's insane. But that's what's cool is they clearly saw something in you from an early age. So you were a teenager getting some of this exposure. Was it at some of these like local picks or camps? Were you going to some of the?
Yes, yes. And cut you short there, there's a place called the Everett's Music Barn here near where I grew up, 20, 30 miles. And My grandfather went there in the 60s. My mom went there in the 70s, and I started going in the 80s. It's called the Everett's Music Barn, still going today. Going on 60 years. I guess it's 60 years now at this point.
That's wild.
They've had music every Saturday night. The barn is where they have music, but they have a house that's vacant now, but the Everett family lived in this house, and every room, bedrooms that they would later sleep in that night, were open, jamming in all these rooms.
Just go find the jam that you want. Be like, are you in the kitchen, the living room?
5-10 jams, period, every Saturday night. And great, great musicians. Here again, I think bluegrass musicians are among the best musicians in the world.
And they most definitely are. But that's what's important is like those foundation, right? Yes. And some of that traditional bluegrass that a lot of the new age bluegrass fans may really not know the depths and the levels of some of these traditional songs and some of these runs and things like that, right? Or even you're saying breaks. And for me, that is where the foundation came from, because it was all born from those traditional songs, right? And there's a certain way that you're playing something. But how did learning in the traditional sense help you start to evolve? Because as you grew as a musician, you're playing jazz ensembles, you're playing all sorts of different licks as a mandolin player. So how did that grow for you?
Let's see. Well, I played in band. I never had any kind of inkling to play for a living. I was in good bands, satisfied, girlfriend here, work here. I was hunky-dory, right? Well, I guess I was 18, and a guy named Wendy Bagwell called me. And Wendy's Hall of Fame, Southern Gospel Hall of Fame, as well as Georgia Music Hall of Fame. Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters was the band. I didn't know who in the crap that was. I didn't. We need a mandolin player to play the rhythm guitar. Can you come try out? Yeah. So I go try out just for craps of it. I'm 18, just out of high school. What are you going to do? I didn't know what I was going to do, this, that, and the other. And so I wasn't there 10 minutes. And, okay, you got the gig. Wow. I don't remember playing 2 songs. And mind you, I was probably out of practice, hadn't been in a band in a year or something like that, so, but I guess he seen something and was satisfied with what he seen. The same day I tried out, a cat named Kevin Williams tried out and got the job. Well, Kevin was there. I was there about 2 years. Kevin was there a little longer than I was. Well, Kevin went on and is right now the music director for Bill Gaither, the Bill Gaither Show, which is the biggest organization of Southern gospel there is and has been for years. And he's been with him for 30 years. So that was pretty cool to get to work with Kevin. Kevin was a very good pro. He knew Southern gospel music. I did not know Southern gospel. To me, Southern gospel music was the boring moments when Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver would do a quartet song right in the middle of, right after Shady Grove or something, where they're just burning it up, I was
but the gospel
Christian, loved it, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I
was there something that you were able to take away from those gospel tunes, though?
Well, it wasn't long before I realized that it was, being raised Christian, it was very, very moving music. They believe in the way that they sing about, what they sing about, You can leave that.
And they talk about that movement, right? And it's singing to your soul.
Yeah, and I sit on Sonia Isaacs sings with the band called the Isaacs. I don't go to their shows because I'd get on the first row and just start crying. It's that pretty. It's that pretty of music, So anyway, long story short, middle. We'll make it middle. It's kind of a long story. But anyway, a real good buddy of mine who I've been in several bands with named Jeff Autry. Jeff Autry's his name. He had played a gig or two with a guy named Jeff Mosier. Well, Jeff Mosier was a banjo player in Atlanta here, and they said, I told him, I said, if y'all ever need a mandolin player, I'd be happy to do it, A day or two, they called and said, come on, we got a gig for you. So Jeff also was in a band called the Aquarium Rescue Unit, a brand new band called the Aquarium Rescue Unit. This would have been 88 or 9. I'm going to say 89. So I play a handful of gigs, and there's a bass player playing with us. And this bass player's named Oteil Burbridge. It was Jeff Mosier, Jeff Autry, and Oteil and I. And we had a pretty good band there. I wouldn't quote it a band. It was more like gigs that Mr. Jeff Mosier was getting us. So Bruce Hampton happened to hear us. Oteil and Jeff Mosier were in the band, but Bruce already. So in short, they asked me to come sit in one night.
And was this in Atlanta or was it in Athens?
In Atlanta, the place, I want to say the 5 Points Pub was the name of the place. 5 Points Pub.
And did Atlanta have a deep-rooted scene at the time in the late 80s?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I was raised 60 miles north of Atlanta, so it was weird to me. All I knew of Atlanta was
Country folk versus city folk.
is going to take a date, and you was really going to get lucky that night because you carried her out to somewhere nice in Atlanta. That's all I knew of Atlanta. We'd go see shows and stuff. But anyway, long story short, Bruce, would you come sit in with us? So I did, and never left. Pretty much is the way that went. And Jeff Mosier ended up quitting. We went on a long trip, and I guess it broke him pretty quick going on these long trips for make $60. It's hard to make a living there.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about.
Nobody was making a living. It was just for fun. Is all it was.
It was just getting by, right? And that's what was so hard. It's like,
here I'm 19 years old. I don't care. $60. I got a pair of tennis shoes. I'm in good shape.
You could make it work at that time, right? But as you start growing and having more responsibilities and wanting more growth, obviously those change, and that's what you're looking for. But at the time in the late 80s, it's a completely different scene, right? You're flagging posters, flyers on the street to try to get people to come up, but you can't be there early because you have to drive however many miles to get to this show.
I think Bruce had a certain following in Atlanta. And when I say a certain / small, there wasn't many, the shows we'd play early on, I've got a pretty good timeline of it, like middle of 1990s when I officially would have become a member. There wouldn't have been 10, 20 people in the crowd, at the most.
How many people do you think were in the room for that 92 live album? Because you were on that one, right? Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, so in 2 years, something happened.
There's a bridge there. So we get a record deal. We start getting, the crowd goes from this to this. A funny story there in the middle is Oteil gets an offer not 3 months after I officially joined. We start touring around the Southeast a little bit. We hadn't been out west. You're in Colorado, right? You're in Colorado.
Yes, sir.
That's where you are. Yes, we hadn't did anything like that. Charleston, South Carolina, Birmingham was on this kind of circuit. So Oteil gets an offer to go with John Cowan Band. John Cowan, Newgrass Revival, which was my heroes, by the way. That was from, the time I heard them. That you can look and see the part in my hair. Sam Bush did that. He parted
you away and got you on one side. Well, thank you to the King of Telluride for that.
So they break up at the end of 89, I think New Year's Eve, 89 going into 90. And so John Cowan gets him a little band up, and about the middle of 90, he calls Oteil, and Oteil accepts to play bass in his new band, which was oddly enough metal. It was like hard rock metal stuff. I went and seen them, and it was
wow.
It was really strange to see. I guess you can see John Cowan at that time. I can see that, I guess, a little bit somewhat, but it was different. We'll put it that way. But the band was over the top. He had one of the, I think it was, is it Reggie Wooten that plays guitar? Reggie was playing guitar with him. Because Wooten's had went with Béla at the time. And so Reggie went with John. So anyway, so we were devastated. Here's
So you're 3 months in, you just signed, and then Oteil's off.
And if I was honest, he was one of the main. He was just awesome to see at that time. Just awesome to. So we had 10 people come to see our crowd, and all of a sudden 5 of them might not come because Oteil's not going to be there. So anyway, long story short, we're scrambling, and about 2 months after that he leaves, he decides he's not happy doing the metal thing with John, and he comes back to Bruce. And at that point, I don't know what it was. Honestly, all I know is by the end of that year, we had a publishing deal with Warner Brothers, a record deal with Warner Brothers / Capricorn, revamped Capricorn, and the crowds were full, 800 to 1,000 seats. Not only in Atlanta, but in the Southeast.
What was it do you think happened,
And
Matt?
this was really before I remember touring with, I don't
Horde.
remember, Widespread.
Yeah, the Horde
Blues
tour.
Traveler and Fish were all, of course, getting going good about that same time also. And I don't remember touring with them until 91. So okay, it comes to you in flashes.
And
Widespread
that's
panic
why
got
we're
the
doing. We're just stirring that pot. Let's see what's coming.
widespread panic got the deal. They were the first band signed with Capricorn, and they may have been responsible for Bruce getting that deal, if I'm
Yeah.
thinking straight.
Because you guys had played a lot of shows together, either opening up for them in those early
At
days,
that
right?
point, I remember maybe one or two, but none with Blues Traveler Fish, which would come later. Yeah, like I
Oh
said,
wow. So then the Horde tour wasn't until later, but you did get some of those
93.
chances. Yep, the 92, 93, and then but with widespread in, so that would have been like what, 89, 90 that you were sitting in with them, and then you got the record deal in 1990, and then things just start to kind of
It did.
go
It
from
was.
there.
I don't remember. You're in Colorado. I
Yes, sir.
ask you that. My Alzheimer kicks in every once in a while, so I have to ask things twice.
Yeah, meanwhile you can probably go play Tin Soldier without even looking at it. So
So I do remember the first time I remember going out west was we opened for Blues Traveler on a tour, and they were getting a good buzz at the time because I think at that time they had opened up for the Almonds and they had did this, that, and the other, and were getting a good name. And so I remember as a matter of fact, you may not conceive it, right there on the wall is a poster from our first tour with them. It's like 10 dates that we played.
wow.
I found it on eBay. The joys of the internet.
Of course, you didn't even have one archived from your own show. You had to go to eBay like the rest of us.
Hey, I bought a lot of things on eBay, some I shouldn't have. But anyway, that's when we started, noticing our crowds just by opening up from them, which they were nice to invite us to do so. Then
Were
you
you
start
able?
noticing your crowds are a little bigger, broad. Then we made our first trip by ourselves out to Colorado, California, and so forth. And then the crowds were, 3, 4, 500 people.
When did Jimmy come on to ARU?
It's debatable the day before me or the day after me. I think he was a day or two before me, about the
Because
same
you
time.
guys came in together, right?
Right there about, yeah.
And then it's funny to hear these stories of how you
He
guys
had
started.
he had a trio with Jeff Sipe, the drummer, and Oteil. They had a band. I think Oteil's brother Kofi was even in that band before they joined Bruce. So they knew each other. They had a little camaraderie there.
There's a connection.
Yeah.
And were you guys able, obviously knowing them and opening some shows, you don't get to spend a lot of time together, right? But were you guys able to commingle when you weren't at shows because you were geographically close to each other? I mean, it's no surprise now Jimmy is playing guitar for Widespread Panic, right? So there had to have been some relationships that were kind of built during those times.
Well, you better believe it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure that those boys were no fun at all, right? And you guys were young and you went to bed early, and you didn't do anything crazy, right?
I'll tell you a funny on Jimmy. I'm going to write a tune, name this at some point because it's funny. Jimmy was in charge. Jimmy and Bruce drove most everywhere we went in a little van we had bought from Widespread Panic, as a matter of fact. So the days of McCormick Map. This is before
Yep.
GPS was a thing.
Or a King's Atlas.
So we had a gig, and I think it was Coleman. I want to say Coleman, Alabama, somewhere over there. Maybe it was Huntsville. There's a place called Tip Top Cafe over there. Anyway, so we're trying to find the little road that goes. Jimmy said, "Now this is funny, but it's probably funnier then than now." He said, "Here's a road that goes right to it, and it'll cut off a lot of time. We don't got to go." And it was the state line. He thought the state.
God.
So his nickname for the whole time I knew him was State Line. You'll have to
State line.
He'll remember that too. State. Here's a
Oh
road
my
goes
God,
right
that
to
is
it.
amazing.
That was the Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia State Line. Yeah,
That's great.
we
I'm
had a
definitely
blast. We
gonna
did.
put that in my back pocket.
I guess I was with the band 3.5 years, right there about. I quit at the end of '93, so 3 years or so. And shortly after that, Bruce quit, and then Jeff quit. And I don't know the details of this, that, and the other, but I think the Aquarium Rescue Unit as a band name continued on for another 3 years
Yeah, and
or
then they
so.
did some reunion stuff later. But for you,
True.
you were part of the 92 live album release, right? And then you guys did another album. When did you start tracking and doing studio time? Because obviously you're starting to come up, right? And you have this deal they just want you guys out. They want you playing shows everywhere you can be, right?
Yeah.
So how busy was it from that 91 into 92 and then coming into 93 for you guys as a band?
That's a good question. Yeah, we were. All I know is we worked the road, period, all the time. I mean, 3 days. Any way you look at it, 3 days a week. But then we'd do this 4 6 week tours through a handful of times a year, where you'd go out west and catch places that you couldn't just go and come back home, sleep in your bed. You had to travel around. Uh, the first album sold pretty well. I remember hearing like 50,000 copies or something like that about that time. For a small independent band. Well, I mean, I guess Warner Brothers isn't an independent band, but we wasn't going to have any songs on the radio to sell records. So, he's word of mouth, and essentially. So then we had to do a second album, the first one being live. So then I guess they booked us in Bobby Brown's studio in Atlanta. It was called Brown Sound. Bobby,
Wow.
you familiar with Bobby Brown?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was married to Whitney at the time. And
Yeah.
I remember in this ear, just hearing rumors about, they're out crazy drag racing cars on at night.
I can only imagine the nonsense that happened at Brown Sound, right? Like
I crushed on Whitney when I was a kid, so I was hoping she'd come in, but she never did. I didn't ever see her or him for that matter. Anyway, so we recorded, and Johnny Sandlin, of course, came on, the legendary producer for the Allman Brothers, and I'm not bass player. Are you familiar with Johnny?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So Johnny Sandlin produced it.
And what was his influence like? Because obviously you guys were coming, you were bringing.
You're out of tune. Play what you want to play.
Well, he did give you some freedom to just kind of get after it.
I mean, his input would have been like, you're out of tune a little bit, or I don't remember ever being corrected. And mind you, I wished he would have corrected me on some of my playing on that album, because I'm not extremely proud of my playing on that. I got in the way too much, or they didn't edit it properly or something. But he was super nice.
Do you feel like it just kind of clashes on that album?
At times,
yeah.
I'm honest, at times, yeah. Yeah.
And
a funny story. What is the piano player? I'm drawing a blank. That plays with the Rolling Stones. That's Chuck Leavell.
Chuck Leavell, yeah.
So Chuck Leavell played on both albums. Funny story in itself. I didn't know who Chuck Leavell was, but he had played with the Allman Brothers and spent the last 30, 40 years with the Rolling
Stones. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, we tuned at 2. Oh, that was Oteil's idea. We followed through with it. No problem. Tuned at 432 instead of 440, which is standard. Okay. So Chuck Leavell comes, and it's in the middle of the day, and Johnny Sandlin's there, and I'm there, and maybe a couple more. Nobody was there that was playing on the track. So he comes in. What do I got to play? And so I showed him the first riff on the mandolin of one of the tunes. I can't remember which tune. Something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, so we're at 432, and the piano in this big nice studio is in 440. So I just remember this awful sound of a clash of tuning, and he probably thought I was, who in the crap are you, telling me what I'm going to play or how this song goes. But nowhere near in tune with him.
Well, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because a few episodes ago we were talking with someone. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Miss McNamara. But I was talking about, hey, like for us as fans that don't play music, that don't know, you don't understand the role that can play. And they're like, here, hold on. I'm going to play this song in tune, and now I'm going to play it not. And it is a night and day difference. But to us simpletons, like you don't know what comes into that. And so nobody told Chuck Leavell to go down to 432, so he's playing at 440.
I still wonder how the session went down, because he's in tune on the album, and I know we was 432.
Wow.
So I know, he may have played like electronic keyboard or something on that. I can't remember. It sounds like piano though on the recording. But another funny story, Chuck Leavell, he came sat in with us several times. He plays 5 or 6 songs, and we used to do Salty Dog, which was the old "Let Me Be Your Salty Dog."
Yeah, of course. So what was the one-liners that you would throw in there? Because that's the best part of Salty Dog.
There's some X-rated stuff in there. You got to watch out for that.
Yes, sir.
So he gets about halfway through the set, he's standing beside me right here, tickling the keys. He said, "Hey man," he said, "I gotta go." He said, I gotta catch a plane. I'm playing with Eric tomorrow." He's talking about Eric Clapton.
Clapton,
Yeah.
yeah.
He said, "I'm
Yeah.
playing with Eric tomorrow." I said, "Oh, okay, Chuck, no problem. I enjoyed it."
And now the keys are
We'll
empty.
let you
He's
go.
all,
We'll let you go. Yeah.
yeah,
We'll
he's
let
going
you
to
go.
fly off with Captain. And
Wait a
that's
minute.
the early,
Here's $50. Hope this will help. You know.
and that's the early 90s. Clapton was on the moon at that time, right?
He still is. He still is. You know, there's a handful of people who I consider diamond entertainers. He's one of them. Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
and one I'm going to see next week. I'm super excited about, and that's Paul McCartney. Going to go see Paul McCartney. Yeah.
I just saw Paul McCartney play at Coors Field
How
here
was it? I'm
a
seeing
week.
that same show. Yeah.
It was literally one of my top 5 favorite concerts of all
It's
time.
pushing 3 hours, right?
It is, and it's nonstop. And the man is 83 years old,
I
and
know.
he has so much stage presence. He is running upstairs to go play the piano, coming back down to rip on the bass. He was playing the ukulele. He got after it. His voice sounds amazing for
That's awesome.
for his age and his energy. I ended up posting a video. The fireworks show for that was just phenomenal, and I mean, the production from those shows, even like the Rolling Stones, like they played with Widespread Panic at the Broncos Stadium
I've
a
seen
year
that.
or two ago, and that was amazing. And you brought up Chuck Leavell. He actually ended up sitting in. JoJo broke his jaw for the Widespread Panic run at Red Rocks. So JoJo couldn't sing, and half the songs are JoJo songs. And so they had Chuck come, and he played, and he did a phenomenal job singing and filling in. And those Red Rock shows, it was super special. But it's so cool to see all these relationships that were built 30, 40 years ago, right? And but that shows you so much about the music industry. And for a lot of fans that look on the outside, they don't realize like what goes in and how well people know each other and how much time you guys are spending. And obviously it was a small burst, but what you did when you were with ARU for those 3.5 years, like it left a resounding impact on the scene and the music that was happening. So when you were in there creating that album, what kind of artistic freedom were you given to help influence some of those songs or to give your voice in any of that?
100%. 100%. I mean, you don't overstep someone. I don't know the proper way to say it, but Bruce was 100% freedom. You know, there's a Fish show somewhere online. I've seen it, and I've heard him do this before, where Fish is doing a show, and he's on the middle of the stage reading a newspaper right in the middle of their show. So it wasn't all about music with Bruce, you know. So I think to take it too seriously would have been the problem, right?
Yeah, but obviously there was
You take the music serious, but don't take yourself serious, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
I definitely hear that, right? But there was a burnout for you at least, right? And you had already said earlier in the interview that like you weren't looking to make a career off of playing music, but you had this rocket ship of momentum for the time that was coming in and that's going. And so 92 the live album was released. 93 you guys have your new album. How long after the new album, because obviously new album comes another tour, right? And you're getting crammed back in that van and going to every dark corner of this country that you can get to. What was it that was playing into some of your decisions? Did you know early on that you wanted to get out, or was it something that happened?
Well, there may have been a time or two, as a matter of, now that you mentioned that, yeah, there was a time or two where I felt more of a pull to be home, you know, as opposed to the nomad life of traveling around. I always attribute it to no hard feelings at all, and probably just tired of the road and wanted to blame it maybe on the volume. It got to where it's really cranking up pretty good, you know, in volume. And Mandolin being a forefront, Mandolin was out on those shows pretty much in the forefront, but maybe the volume had a little bit.
Pretty much. Okay, for those of you guys that have not listened to the show, Matt is being very humble about this. You were talking about Oteil and being the bass is the backbone, right? But that sound and that power, that came from you, Matt. Like there was
I go with Jeff Syke too. Jeff Syke drove the crap out of that band. He sure
Well,
did.
yeah, 1,000%, and he still
And
does.
we can also blame him for the tempos too.
So we know where to point that finger. But
I've
for
got
you,
I've got Jeff on my new album. He's a best friend, and I don't know of any better drummer that can play all the styles than he. So he gets full praise for driving the Aquarium Rescue Unit also.
well, yeah, because and that's the other thing that I really wanted to talk about is because coming from that traditional, you're playing gospel, right? And now you're driving with an electric bass, you have a drummer. This was the early 90s. This was something that was relatively unheard of. Like we have Newgrass and we have some of these jamgrass bands that were coming up, but for you guys, you were a huge part of that evolution and showing people, and now not just playing traditional bluegrass, but improvisations, playing funk, playing jazz. Like you guys really got out. And go
That
ahead.
was there. That's what drew me. I seen the original. I guess it'd been the original. Yeah, before I joined, it was Jeff Mosier, Count Mobutu. We're leaving him out, the great conga player who went on to play with Derek Truck's band forever. Jeff, Bruce, Oteil, and there was a guitar player, great guitar player here in town named Charlie Williams, who wrote a lot of the songs. But they did that. The first I seen them 2 times before I sat in with them, and both times they were involved with that. Playing one song, and Bruce would do something crazy. Next thing, without stopping, well, here's the next song. Without stopping, they was into the next song, and it may be bluegrass or it may be a soft jazz thing, and that was 100% attractive to me. I thought that was just awesome. I'd never seen that before. I didn't grow up listening to Grateful Dead. The only thing I knew about the Grateful Dead was I used to smoke pot with a guy who's all he did was talk about the Grateful Dead. I didn't know who in the crap. I still don't listen to them, if I'm honest. No Till has worked with them for 10 years. I complete respect. So I had never seen that thing where you know
Weaving those things together.
who did I
So
hear say that? It was John Bell. JB said something along the lines the Grateful Dead was like seeing a band that every song was a concert. Every song was a concert. So that I seen that recently in an interview. That was profound. But I had never seen that. And that so that's something that continued when we started. Although it was less and less. Later, Bruce got a little sluggish and a little lazy as wanting to entertain. And a lot of times he'd not go through the motions. He'd wake up, if you know what I mean.
yep.
But he was very happy in a small pond. I think Bruce was. But that was still the thing where you wanted to do every song or next thing would be a different thing. Jazz, bluegrass, blues, Delta, and then maybe a rock thing or something. So that me probably separated us, and I say us because I was lucky to be part of that, from any of the other bands we were working with, because they all pretty much played the same kind of song every song, pretty much.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to talk about was how you guys felt the difference on those horde tours, those tour dates, because of all these huge, like the bands that you guys were touring with have now become these iconic pillars in the
Agreed.
scene, right?
Agreed. Yeah. Well, first time we opened for Fish, it was 100 seat. It's 100 seat. They didn't need an opener. It was a small club, but we opened for them. It's 100 people at most. Fish.
Yeah.
Now there's more than that people in the bathroom when you go to one of their shows.
Well, and that's what's crazy is like we're starting to see this evolution, right? Obviously, there's the Dead and the Stones and the Beatles and all these things that had these bigger venues that they were filling out. But coming from like a traditional bluegrass sense, that was never it, right? Nobody's like,
No,
"Hey, I'm gonna go fill out the football stadium and go play
no,
Blackberry Blossom," right? Like that's
that's
not
not
it.
that. No, and I always tell and hush hush, but there's maybe 10 or 15 bluegrass bands that make a decent living, and that's shooting down 50 or 100 that are great, awesome, that live have to really pull things together, possibly do other things to make a living.
Well, and
So
that's what people.
we wasn't making much money. It was just, and maybe that was one of the reasons I quit. I was like, well, it's okay, but it's also nice to eat too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I was wondering is like, okay, so you go and you do the horde tours, you have a new album coming out, you're going and for me, it's just like there has to be some burnout, right? There has to be something. And like you said, maybe you just were wanting to be back home and never really wanted to chase this in the first place. But what was the conversation like with the band? Did you let them know like, hey, I'm wanting to step away? Was it a quick rip and then you're out, or what was the exit like?
It was probably a quick rip more than anything, you know. And I hope no hard feelings, because there didn't seem to be. You know, I played a couple of shows afterwards, and it could have been smoother. I guess it could have been a smoother exit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a breakup, right? If you haven't done it, and if you haven't done it like that, how do you really prepare and know what the right
Right.
way to go through that is?
That's true. That's true. And plus, here you are. I was 24 years old. You're full of yourself. You're cocky. You got attitude. You know, nobody's going to tell you what to do. But here again, there was no animosity in the band. It was more. And I sort of felt like Bruce was also, as I mentioned, you know, I don't think he was in the best health at that time, you know. But it could have been smoother and shorter.
Well, and everything can happen, right? And like what's crazy is there were all these. Did you completely get out of music in '93? Did you just like hang it up and
No,
walk away?
no, it would have been 97 probably. Then I realized I better find work, you know, yeah,
So
Bill.
you went off. What did you end up going to do after you left in '93?
I played in a couple of bands. I played with a guy named Kevin Williamson, not Williams, but Kevin Williamson.
Not Williams, a different.
Yeah,
So Williamson,
yeah,
okay.
he's great. We did an album for Pine Castle Records, which is a big label for bluegrass music. And shortly after that, I spent a year with Lynn Morris, who's also bluegrass music.
Oh wow, yep, yeah, that's
I
wild.
got to play the Grand Ole Opry with her. What else? There's a lot of great festivals. The Rocky Grass, that's out your way. Played
Yes,
Rocky
sir.
Grass with her.
I got a media pass for last year,
How
and
about that?
I was able to interview so many phenomenal musicians and some of these up and comers as well as some of these icons, Peter Rowan. Like it was, I got to interview Béla Fleck, and that's where I wanted to talk with you because so Béla for me was like one of the like, oh my God, and he wasn't on the bill, and I saw him backstage, and I was like, okay, I have to at least just ask,
He was
right? I
just
just
hanging
have.
out. He was
Well,
just
he
hanging
was
out.
hanging out. He ended up doing a couple of sit-ins because it's Béla and he has to keep himself busy constantly, right? And I just went up and I asked him, I saw him talking to one of my other buddies in another band, and I just said, "Hey Béla, I'm really sorry. I just want to introduce myself. I absolutely love what you've done for this scene and for music, and it would be an honor to spend a couple minutes and chat with you if you have the time." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." And he could not have been nicer. And it went that whole day, and it didn't happen. And I was like, "Oh, you know, whatever. Like stuff happens. It's just not going to work out. It's Béla Fleck, right? Like why is he going to take the time?" The next day, he literally came and found me
How about
and
that?
was like, he's like, "Hey, let's go." So I'm sitting on this bench in the woods with Béla Fleck, and I'm just going, "Okay, just don't fanboy." And I'm
Yeah,
literally the whole
same,
15 minutes, I'm just staring into this man's eyes, and
same.
I'm asking all these questions, and I know that you have similar feelings for Béla, and that's what I wanted to talk about because you also got the chance to play with him too.
A handful of times. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it would have been the first Horde tour. Fish couldn't do the South Leg. I think's the way it went. They were booked for other things, and so I think that's right. Yeah, yeah. Fish. I'm like, well, Fish started the Horde tour. No, I think it was Blue John.
Blues Travelers couldn't
I
make
think
it.
John started. No, John was there every show. It would have been
Okay.
Fish that couldn't make it. They played, and so they, for some reason, chose Béla Fleck, which that's pretty far out in my opinion, but they did. And somewhere it was 4 dates, and somewhere in there, he comes to my dressing room and says, "Hey man, let's pick." And I said, "Okay." I said,
That's
"I'm in
awesome.
432. Let me get to 440 right quick." So yeah. But anyway, and that sprung up a friendship. Gave me his number or call. Somehow I ended up at his house like shortly after that, not long after that. Got some friends coming over tonight. We're going to do some jamming. Oh really? Who is it? Let's see. Got Tim O'Brien, Jerry Douglas, Edgar Meyer.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And
Then
I said,
you pick your jaw up off the floor.
where's the sniffing sauce? You know what sniffing sauce is? That's another
Of
tune.
course.
Sniffing sauce is what the cops used to give you when you passed out. You know, they'd put this stuff
Yeah,
on you.
get you
Oh
up.
boy. I said, where's the sniffing sauce? But anyway, so yeah, that begun a friendship. And it wasn't long. It may have been before I quit Bruce that he reached out to for me to come do a recording session with him. Actually, it was after, because Sam Bush was scheduled for the recording session and broke his hand, which I think
Wow.
he's done a few times down through the years. But he broke his hand, and he made me pretty proud. He reached out to me instead of any of the number of mandolin players that he could have got to fill in for the session. Session was booked. He couldn't cancel it. Didn't matter. Sam Bush or Elvis was booked. He had to cancel it. So, or he didn't want to cancel it, I think is the way it went. So, yeah, I went up and rehearsed with him a time or two and went up and did the session. And that
Yeah.
goes
So
all the way back to the first of the conversation when I said, work out your breaks, because, buddy, I did pretty close.
yes. Well, and that's what
I didn't want to show up naked to that one, you know.
yeah. So you had that evolution and this growth, and now you're sitting in Béla Fleck's house, right? And he's sending you some of the songs beforehand so that you can
He
practice
didn't
them.
know. He invited me up to his.
Oh wow! So you were just coming in literally blind. So you just had to have some breaks in your back pocket, ready to let them rip.
More or less. More or less. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was always proud and nervous, proud of the heart attack I almost had. Because where are you going to sit? They're going to sit me right next to Tony Rice in the studio, you know.
Oh
So
my God!
luckily I was halfway prepared, because I actually had to change my underwear 4 or 5 times during that session.
Yeah,
Crapping over.
yeah, of course. I mean, how could you not, right? Like you're and you know this at the time. You were literally with the icons, right?
That,
How was
yes.
it personally for them to bring you? Because like, okay, you Sam Bush, that's a whole nother deal, right? But
Yes.
here comes Matt, and
I just had a good visit with Sam too about 4 months ago. He played here and invited me back and got to visit with him. It was awesome. Yeah, he's great.
well, and that's what's so cool is he is always so warm and welcoming. And
He
again at
really
Rocky
is.
Grass, he was bringing in all the mandolin players, right? And he's chatting with them and he's putting people under his wing. And that's what's so great to see in our community is these people who we like look up to and we think are so amazing. They end up being the most down to earth, genuine people. Now, that's not everyone, right? But there are a lot of them that do that.
I've been
And
lucky. I've been lucky. When I met Tony, it was the same thing. He was like super super nice, you know. But Tony's probably my biggest hero in bluegrass. He would be one of them, you know, because for my generation coming up in the '80s, he was at his peak. You know,
oh no, the
80,
flat picking
84,
machine.
85. Yeah. Yeah. So those records, and of course, Manzanita being one of my first records ever. That one. He had a record. My first bluegrass record that I ever bought was Still Inside by Tony Rice. And I was already familiar with his singing on all the J.D. Crowe stuff, because my mom had somewhat of a knowing of them. She knew J.D. Crowe and them, having lived in Louisville at the time. As a matter of fact, up here I got a picture of my mom on stage with Tony Rice and Ricky Skaggs. It's pretty
Oh
awesome.
wow, that is super cool. But let's talk about something even cooler because
Please.
mom, so you get out in 97. How long was it until you got
10
back in?
years. 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, I would get the mandolin out, and I can't. I say you can't. Just get it out. I know mandolin players and bluegrass players who don't play from gig to gig, and they don't gig 6 months apart and play the dang same and sound. I can't do that. So it took me a while to get back. I'd get it out every once in a while, just noodle it a little bit, and just never sparked. Well, one day it finally sparked a little bit, and next thing you know, I was playing around, playing in some local bands around here in Atlanta, Atlanta area. I'm in Cumming, which is about an hour north of
Yeah, so
Atlanta.
you're still about 60 miles north of the metro. So what was it that happened in 2007 that made that spark rekindle and start to get that flame burning
Well,
again?
I worked part time on Saturdays at a music store here in Cumming. Some pickers started coming in there. A buddy, Curtis Jones, a buddy, Devin Wiseman, a great banjo player who's on my new album, playing quite a bit of 5-string banjo. And just jamming, just jamming. The next thing you know, I'm wanting to buy a nice. At that time, the internet was out. You had Mandolin Cafe and all these websites advertising.
Yeah.
You know, used to you to buy a mandolin, there may have been one or two close by you, or at a music store, or you at a festival. But nowadays, the internet is is advertising, you know, boutique mandolins, maybe in Washington State, whatever.
Yep.
And so the lure, I guess, the lure of that, uh, you know, may have had something to do with rekindling, wanting to pick too, I guess, really.
Did you there's the internet, as we're talking about it, is a wonderful and terrible place. There were some folks that said that you sold
It's
all of
all
your
there.
yeah, that you sold all of your instruments, that you literally like gave it up. Is that true? Did you like sell
Yes.
those?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to have a pair of underwear, man.
Yeah, so you just needed to pay the bills. And you said
Yeah,
that you
and there
ended up
was I
going.
didn't have any use. I just didn't. It was a black eye. Didn't really have any use for
You
music.
just
Just
wanted to
playing
step
drums.
away and just leave it be. And
Correct.
so then you start getting jamming and you feel the liveliness of those picks, right? And it's just like being in this basement. It doesn't matter about a crowd, it doesn't matter about anything. You go and do this run or you have this lick that you play and then they're coming in over the top and you feel it, right? And so
Yes.
obviously
Yes.
that started burning inside of you again. And so what has that evolution been? Because that was what, in seven? I know that you just released a brand new album in September, right? So since you started to repick it up and obviously not wanting to go on the road, having a quote real job, what was the music adventure like for Matt 2.0?
Just it's fellowship as much as it is anything. So the fellowship of having you look around and your buddies are the ones that you pick with or play with. So that's what it ended up with me. The friends that I've made that are lifelong friends are musicians, are pickers. So as far as how that developed, I guess just a couple of bands I've been a part of in the past 10 years, bluegrass bands, and since end of 18, I've been in my mom's bluegrass band, which is Fontana Sunset, and that's it's probably the best bluegrass band I've ever been in. Yeah, it's great, lots of fun. My mom is great bass. She's 78, still enjoys playing
Still
as much as
slapping that bass.
she still loves it. Still loves it. Voice still sounds good and clear.
Well, and
So
it's a full
it's
circle moment for you too.
it's fellowship. Maybe it's a bored thing. I'm 56, so as you get towards retirement, you don't want to just watch TV all the time or work. I'm not a yard guy. I can cut my grass, weed eat, blow my driveway in 40 minutes.
In and
That's
out. Yes.
done. So it's hobby. I tell people it's kind of like playing tennis or something. It's a lot of fun.
Was there any bands that you've heard over the last decade or two that really started to draw some of your attention, or you like the style or the sound of it? That
Boy, there are. There are. These colleges are turning these cats out that are top notch, buddy. I think what was the one in Texas that Alan Mundy used to, South Plains, I think it was the only college that I remember hearing of back in the day that
that had
had
a
a
bluegrass.
bluegrass program.
Yep,
Now
exactly.
there's the one at the ETSU in Tennessee.
East Tennessee State. Yep, and then you got obviously Berkeley up north
Berkeley
in
is
Boston.
turning them out left and right. So
Man,
to
it's
answer your question is yes, there's some great players, and this is personal. I hope not to offend anybody, but you want to see these people not only be good players, but you want to see these people be good singers too. I'm seeing a lot more players now. You ought to hear me. I'm not Frank Sinatra, good Betty there. So, but my point is, it seemed like all the bands that I listened to, you had your David Grismans that were all instrumental, and maybe that's what they're going for. It's hunky dory. But the bluegrass bands that turned me on, Newgrass Revival included, J.D. Crowe, they had good singing,
and harmonies.
and
I always talk
harmonies.
about the harmonies in bluegrass.
Correct. Yeah.
Being able to layer, just like you're laying those string instruments on top of each other, being able to vocally do the same thing, it becomes so powerful. And
Yes.
kind of going back to like that gospel thing, right? Because now you have the congregation, you have the band that's
There
playing,
you go.
and
That may be it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's all got to go and coincide with each other, and it's really fun to
Yeah.
do that. And it's funny because you had this full circle moment of you started with a family band and now you're back happy playing with a family band again, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't play enough. We don't play enough. I end up just sitting here. I play them handful of recordings for people. They'll send me tracks and I'll create a file for them and send it back or something like that. I've done a little bit of that here. It's kind of fun. Set up a little home studio
So where did you record the latest album that just came out in September?
at my brother's. My brother's got a studio in his basement. Yeah. Yeah. He bought a house. It's been 10 years ago. And he's plays guitar on most of the album too, by the way. He bought a house because he wanted a house with a basement. They had a nice house. So I want a house with a basement so I can have a studio. He wanted to build booths, the whole bit, which he did. And so sister-in-law, Terry, is a hairstylist. So she said, okay, well, now wait a minute. I got to have half of it.
You get half, I get half.
She
That's a
set
smart
her up,
lady.
so now I can go over there and I can get a flat top and record a song all in the same night.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Get my John Duffy on.
What went into finally coming to the point where you guys wanted to record this new album, and what was it for selecting some of the songs and who you had, because you have a lot of phenomenal musicians that came and sat in with you. You said your mother, she played bass on 80% of the songs. You got John Maylander, Jeff Sipe. You have a bunch of wonderful names that came in to do this project with you.
Everybody said yes. I was pleased with that. I guess everybody said yes. I tried to get Oteil to play on it, but I couldn't get past the security at the Sphere. So we had a I couldn't get past the security at the Wizard of Oz there at the Sphere to get a hold of Oteil. Just kidding. I texted with Oteil today, as a matter of fact. He's in
Egypt.
He's in Egypt.
Yeah.
At the deals there. So, but anyway, yeah, everybody said yes, and I was honky dory. I had wrote the song sitting here. I have the software and stuff, and you start layering stuff, just demoing things for yourself. Ideas start coming out and stuff, piecing together songs is what it amounts to. And I said, well, I may as well just see if I can't document these. Reached out, and everybody said yes. Half was acoustic bluegrassy stuff, and I said, no, there's some that just it needs that drum. It needs not John Bonham, but it needs a soft little push, and a soft jazz swing type thing. Who can I get? I got Jeff Sipe to do it. So.
Of course you did.
And he was hunky dory. He did all. We sent him the files. I sent him mandolin rhythm and mandolin soul melody, like this. And so he rented out a studio up there. I think he's near Asheville up there. And he called me early in the morning, asked me a couple of questions about what I'd said. Blah, blah, do I do this here? And by 2:00, he was done. He said they're on the way. The files were on the way. So that's a professional for you. 6 songs I think he drummed on
in 2 hours or so.
Yeah. He may have took a break. I don't know. But that's all he used to do was practice. I remember he always had sticks in his hands. He's always practicing polyrhythms and all kinds of stuff, But yeah, and who else? John Maylander. I was real pleased. He was the first choice that I had for, especially the jazzier type things. He has a beautiful tone on fiddle.
Yes.
Yeah, I was really surprised when Big Billy Strings guy. I figured John was probably up for that gig. But maybe he was with Hornsby and didn't want to. I don't know the backstory there. But he was the first choice.
There's obviously been sit-ins and Michael Campbell, right? There was a Billy String before they had brought on Alex Hargraves. I used to chase the Billy shows where they had a fiddle sit-in because it just adds such a dynamic.
That's why I know musicians within a hand's reach: banjos, mandolins, guitars, and basses, but fiddles are harder to find a good fiddle player.
And there's a show in Atlanta where Michael Cleveland sat in, and it is one of my favorite shows of all time.
I've seen him fiddling before, and he gets this far off. He's pulling that bow. It's like he's elevating this far off the ground.
Man, if you've never seen the man play live, it is crazy. But for the people that are listening that haven't, it's like you said, it's an experience, right? And so when Alex was brought on, but what's cool is John Maylander, he's playing a lot in Nashville. I know he's done some stuff at D's and things like that. He has an album coming out. And that's what's crazy. It's like, just like you were saying, Sam Bush fell out and then you got the opportunity to come in and sit in. You never know when these puzzle pieces miss and when opportunity knocks and what happens. What I will tell you is Alex Hargraves brings a sound to that band that is completely different, right? But I always joke about the shows where Billy has Dwayne Trucks playing drums behind them, right? And it's like it's chasing some of that, the sounds that you guys were bringing, right? And it's like adding some of that, and it's fun to see that evolution. And it's crazy because like for you, what I love to hear now is you're getting back to the passion, right? You're
Yeah.
getting back to loving music for what it's for. For some of those people out there that think that they're chasing something and maybe get to that precipice of where you got to, and then realize like, hey, this isn't what I'm looking for. What would you wish someone had been able to sit you down and talk to you about that you can now say to some of these people with the power of the internet?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. That's a good question. You know, always in retrospect, I think a lot of it is also personal life. You know, as your personal life clears, is this what I want to do? Am I on the level with these players in all aspects of what's going on with respect to this and also this back here? Yeah, I don't know. Do you like to play music? You know, who was it? Jimmy Martin, the great Jimmy Martin, said something along those lines. He said, I hear of all these people who want to play music and want to do it. And he said, he asked them something like, well, can you do it? You know, can you play it? Is it fun? Is it something you enjoy to do? You could have always, you know, hindsight's always true. You could always, Kodi, look back and say, I wished I would have did this or that different.
For sure. But that's where, Matt, people are often inspired or learn through other people's experiences too,
Okay,
right?
absolutely.
And so for some of these guys, because I mean I'm lucky enough to talk to some of these bands that are on that rocket ship that you guys were on too, right? And the same thing can happen, and history repeats itself where you see this huge launch and then all of a sudden something happens and it's gone, right?
Yes, yeah, you got that right. Yeah, yeah, and fast. The stars align, or they do not, and the
Yep.
stars align, but eventually the stars are probably going to separate.
Well,
Great opinion.
you can either grow together or grow apart, right? And
Yeah,
that's where it's so hard. And I think you already answered it. A lot of it comes from those personal relationships, right? And you started doing this so young. You were maturing as a young man while also maturing as a musician. And there's so much coming at you so quickly. You kind of have to get lucky in what you're dodging and what you're not doing. And there's never anybody like there wasn't a coach or a therapist or somebody you could reach out to that could say, "Hey, Matt, here's what you need to focus on."
yeah,
But that's
yeah,
what's so cool is now there is stuff like this, right? And what I love is that you can put it down, but if you truly love something, you don't know what you got until it's gone, and it slowly came back to you, right? And so now for the people that don't know, where can they go and find your new album? Where can you find playing you guys in some of these local shows in Georgia or the Southeast? I don't know
sure,
how often you're getting out. Where do
sure.
people come and find you, Matt?
Well, this year I probably played a half a dozen, excuse me, more than that, probably about 15, 20 shows with different configurations, but on a regular basis with my mom, which is Frances Mooney and Fontana Sunset. It's the name of the band. Got a website. You can see the shows there. And of course, the new music should be anywhere. Spotify and YouTube and all the Amazon and all that. And it's free. We don't do this for money anymore. You know, used to bands that would make a record, they would sell the records and make a little bit of money there. You really don't do that anymore. You really
Well,
just, you know, you make your, if you're a professional musician, you better get to work playing, gigging, and teaching or something, because
selling merch,
it's
doing,
free.
yeah.
Music is free until you're Taylor Swift, and then you might make some pennies on your dollar, you know.
Yeah, but you can also make your soul sing, right? And you can
There
tap
you
some
go.
feet and you can share this music with more people.
I don't need at this point. I don't need the money. I need to enjoy doing something, and I enjoy doing this album. Yeah, it's called Many Ways Home. And the play on words of Many Ways Home. It's the album's not all bluegrass. It's all kinds of different things. So not one music is correct and is the best, so to say.
Well, and that's why I love the name of the album because you're right, right? Like there's so many different routes that you can take to get to where you were going. And just like all of us in life, right? Like there's not one way to get somewhere. And with music, it's the same way. And we've obviously been able to see some of your evolution and what's going on. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. I appreciate you taking the time. And for all of you who do not know you need to know better, and I will link everything in the description for you guys to
Well,
find.
you can take it as a fact or a threat, but I'm not done yet. I hope to do a lot more.
Yes,
More music in the future. And also, I might mention that Luke Bulla, the great Luke Bulla, who's just over the top fiddle player, plays also on the new album. I wanted to plug him because he plays on the more bluegrassy stuff that you'll hear. He's one of the best to ever pull a bow. He's awesome. Yeah.
well, and he deserves a shout out because we talked about it. There's not a lot of fiddle players, right?
We need more.
We sure do. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough. And to everybody else,
Thank you,
make
Kodi.
sure to share it with a friend. Go download the album, follow this man, and go check out some of those old ARU shows. And we'll catch you next week.
That's right. Thank you.